The Forsaken Heir. Previous episodes are available on the playlist. You can also visit our website for your favorite stories. A link is provided in the video description. Episode 71. Yet. Charlie nodded, and said, "Okay, let's leave." At this time, Hagel also ran over with the power bank, handed both the power bank and the charging cable to Delon, and said, "Delon, take the power bank." Delon put it into his backpack, wiped away his tears, and said to everyone, "Grandma, Master, Father, Mother, Uncle, Second Uncle, I'm leaving." Everyone waved at him. "Take care, pay attention to safety on the road." Delon looked at Charlie again and bowed to him. "Mr. Charlie, I'm leaving." Charlie snorted and said, "Hurry up, you will be punished if you delay time." Delon nodded busy, "Don't worry, I will do my best." Charlie waved his hand, "Okay, time to go." Delon nodded, glanced at his relatives reluctantly, and then straddled hard on the huge 28 bicycle, pedaled twice, and it swayed out. Juanita cried bitterly, and old Kevin hurriedly took her in his arms and comforted her. "Okay, Delon has grown up, and it's time to take responsibility for his own actions." Juanita cried and nodded. Although distressed, she couldn't say it anymore. Charlie looked at Elsa at this time and said seriously, "When your cousin arrives in Oris Hill, you must strictly restrain him. If he is honestly reforming, he may be able to change his mind, otherwise, this person may be abandoned in the future." Elsa quickly responded and said, "Don't worry, I will strictly restrain him." Yet. Charlie nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go back first." Elsa asked, "Then I book the ticket and will tell you?" "It is good." Elsa asked again, "Do you want me to pick you up where you live and go to the airport with you?" Charlie waved his hand, "No, see you at the airport." Waliang hurried up and said with a smile, "Mr. Charlie, are you going back to my uncle's house? It's not easy to take a taxi here. Why should I not drive you?" Charlie glanced at him and nodded slightly, "All right." The whole Dong family put Charlie and Waliang in the car together, and finally breathed a sigh of relief when the car drove away. In the car, Waliang said with a compliment, "Mr. Charlie, your handling of Delon is really amazing." Charlie said indifferently, "That's the case, you don't have to flatter me here." Waliang hurriedly said, "I'm really not trying to flatter you. Usually, when people solve such problems, they often have to teach the other party and force the other party to honor the bet. But you can open the net, let him go, and give him tailoring. Such a set of transformation plans is absolutely deliberate. I believe Delon will never dare to be arrogant and domineering again." Charlie looked at him and asked, "What about you? Do you still dare to be arrogant and domineering in the future and draw swords at your relatives?" Waliang's expression was stunned, and he blurted out, "No, no, absolutely not." Charlie was sitting in Waliang's car on the way to Gu's home. Elsa sent him a WeChat message, saying, "Charlie, I have booked the air tickets for the two of us back to Oris Hill. It's 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, okay?" "Okay." Charlie replied, "How much is the ticket?" "I'll transfer you." Elsa complained, "It's just a plane ticket, so you have to give me money? You are too far apart from me, right?" Charlie said seriously, "You paid for me, how can I not pay you?" Elsa snorted and asked, "Then you saved me several times, how can I not repay you? When will Mr. Charlie give me a chance to agree with me?" Charlie was speechless and said helplessly, "Well, I won't be polite to you about the ticket. See you at the airport tomorrow morning." Elsa said, "Then you get to the airport before 8 o'clock, don't get up late." Charlie said, "Don't worry, I will be at the airport on time." After hanging up the phone, Waliang on the side asked nervously, "Mr. Charlie, are you going back to Oris Hill tomorrow?" "Correct." Waliang asked again, "Mr. Charlie, when will you come back again?" "Not sure yet." Waliang felt cold. He originally thought that if Charlie would stay in Eastcliff, he would go to his uncle's house every 3 to 5 to fawn on him. Maybe after a while, he would be able to forgive him for what he did before and restore his fertility. But Charlie will leave Eastcliff tomorrow, and he won't have a chance to cheat in the future. What can he do? If Charlie intends only to recover him after 3 to 5 years, how can he live these 3 to 5 years? Charlie also saw through his thoughts and said lightly, "Even if I am not in Eastcliff, you can still perform well in front of your uncle's family. If they are satisfied with your performance, I can consider getting you back to normal in advance." Waliang breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, "Mr. Charlie, don't worry, I will work hard." When Charlie returned to Gu's house, Philip had already gone to the Gu group. He recovered from a serious illness and was in very good physical condition, so he devoted himself to work, struggling to strengthen his control in the Gu group. Except for the servants at home, Charlie only saw Sarah lying on the sofa reading a novel. Because all the villas are heated by the floor, even though it's cold outside, the villa is still very warm. The temperature in the room is constant at about 28 degrees. You can wear shorts and short sleeves at home like summer. Sarah was wearing a lace nightdress, and her slender and white legs were overlapped and exposed to the air. Her figure is indeed the best among all the women Charlie has ever seen. Even the little Pepper Aoxia who has been practicing martial arts all the time can't compare with it. This is mainly because Sarah's body proportions are so good, she is the 9-headed body that all female stars dream of. The so-called 9-headed body refers to the height of a woman, which is equal to 9 times the length of her own face. A woman with this ratio has the most perfect body. It is extremely difficult to find a woman with such a perfect body ratio in life. It's not an exaggeration to pick one. Seeing Charlie's return, Sarah stood up happily, ran to him 3 or 2 steps, and said with a smile, "Charlie, why did you come back so early? I thought you would not come back until the evening." Charlie felt that his arm was being held tightly by her hands, and it was inevitable that he was a little bit disheartened, but he didn't dare to think about it, and said, "It's nothing more than attending a birthday banquet, and I am back when it is over." After speaking, Charlie asked her, "Aunts and uncles are not there?" "Yet." Sarah said softly, "Dad has gone to the group, and Mom has gone to a charity dinner. There are charity auctions and wine parties. They won't eat at home at night." Charlie nodded. He knew that with Lennon's status, she was also a top-rank super celebrity in Eastcliff. Her husband made a high-profile comeback, and she had to use her method to make a high-profile comeback to be able to support her husband. Sarah asked tentatively at this time, "Charlie, are you sure you are leaving tomorrow?" Charlie said, "Yes, I will leave tomorrow." Sarah looked a little lost, hesitated for a moment, remembered something, and said, "Charlie, you accompany me out for a tour." Charlie asked her, "You are a big star, just go out on the street, won't you be followed by the paparazzi?" Sarah smiled and said, "Just like the last time I picked you up at the airport, just disguise it." After speaking, Sarah said again, "I'll take you to the place we played when we were young. Do you remember the place 9T Street? 9T Street?" Charlie frowned, always feeling that this place's name was strange and familiar. Sarah said, "It's the place where we often asked our parents to take us when we were young. There are many small vendors, small shops, lots of delicious and fun things, and it is next to Y Lake. When we were young, it was winter, we went to Y ice skating, do you remember?" In Charlie's mind, a fragment of childhood suddenly appeared. In the picture, he and Sarah together, led by their parents, went to 9T Street to eat candied haws, and play ice carts on the ice. The winter in East Cliff is very cold. Thick ice will form on the lake in Y. After the ice is frozen, people will go skating and playing ice carts on the lake. The children are all sitting on the self-made ice carts. An iron rod stabs and moves on the ice. At that time, children didn't have any electronic products to play with, so when winter came, Charlie wanted to go skating in Y. He still remembers that Sarah's parents had a very beautiful courtyard house on Y. Every time his parents took him to Y, they would first take him to visit Sarah's parents, and then have a meal in the courtyard of the house. Thinking about it now, those memories that have not appeared in his mind for more than 10 years are still vivid after so long. At that time, Sarah was just a follower. Wearing a thick cotton-padded jacket, like a small cotton ball, her little hands stretched out from the sleeves of the cotton-padded jacket, grabbing the corners of her clothes tightly, and would not let go. At that time, she always put the same word Charlie on her lips, her voice was sweet and waxy, and she was a little bit shy, it was really cute. However, that place he loved most when he was a child, he hasn't been there for 18 years. Thinking of this, Charlie's heart was full of nostalgia. So he asked her, "Sarah, is your courtyard on the back beach still there?" "Yeah." Sarah said with a smile, "That is a protected building, and it is not allowed to be demolished. My dad spent a lot of money to renovate it 2 years ago. If the traffic in the city center is not too heavy, we would all want to move there for permanent residence." As she said, she couldn't hide her excitement and asked, "Charlie, do you want me to take you there now?" The memories in Charlie's mind swarmed, and his heart suddenly became excited, and he blurted out, "Okay." After receiving Charlie's definitive answer, Sarah danced happily, ran back to the room, and immediately changed into a thick long down jacket. To prevent people from seeing her, she also brought a warm mask and a furry hat with 2 cute rabbit ears. In addition, she also holds a pair of round-framed black-rimmed eyes in her hand. After wearing it, she is a cute and adorable girl. She has a great style, a deviation, who will make all men crazy in love with her. In fact, in Sarah's bones, she is a cute and strange girl. She has a simple mind, no love experience, no experience of getting along with the opposite S3X, and no secretive thoughts like those girls outside. Charlie saw the shadow of his childhood from her face. Looking back now, Sarah was the sweet burden of his childhood. The reason why I say it is a sweet burden is that, although he doesn't want her to be with him every day, calling him Charlie like a stalker, but deep in his heart, he really enjoys the feeling of turning around him. Sarah saw Charlie look at her a little lost, her pretty face suddenly flushed, and she said timidly, "Charlie, why are you looking at me like this?" Charlie came back to his senses and smiled awkwardly and politely and said, "It's just that I suddenly thought of things when I was young, and I was a little distracted." Sarah's heart was sweet and joyful, she lowered her eyelids slightly, and whispered, "Let's go quickly." In order not to expose Sarah's identity as much as possible, Charlie and she drove the humble old Volvo all the way from the villa area to the city center. Y is in the center of East Cliff and it can be said to be one of the most prosperous places in the city. Moreover, this place has not been overdeveloped. The old courtyard houses are well protected. If you want to see the life of the East Cliff, you have to come to this place. More than half an hour later, Sarah drove into an alley near Y Lake. From this slightly narrow alley, it is difficult to tell whether every household in it is an ordinary family or a large family. In East Cliff, there are two kinds of people who live in the courtyard. One is a very poor person who lives in an old bungalow. There may not even be a toilet at home. You need to run to the public toilet every day. Even in the middle of the cold winter, you have to get up and run to the public toilet. There is also a very wealthy person. If you want to live in a courtyard house, you must first have enough money to make the courtyard house very livable. Because courtyards are mostly single-story buildings, from the outside, no one can see what the inside looks like. Only when you come in will you find the differences. Some courtyards are crowded with briquettes, bicycles, and kimchi jars full of aisles. It is very difficult to walk. There are also many shabby built shacks and there are many safety risks. But there are also courtyards, from the outside, they do not show the mountains or and are not eye-catching at all, but after entering, they found that there is a cave inside. This is the case with Sarah's courtyard house. Other people's courtyards are crowded and messy, while Gu's courtyards are carton and antique. Inside, there is not only a whole piece of white marble carved into the wall, but also 9 carton tamarins with different poses. This is the 9-dragon wall that was unique to ancient royal buildings. It can be said to be the highest standard. There is a similar 9-dragon wall in the Forbidden City. It's okay to put it in modern times. If it's in ancient times, no one can use such high-standard things except the emperor. Once discovered by the royal family, it would be a crime of treason, and it could even punish the 9 races. Moreover, this courtyard has 4 entrances and 4 exits, and the entry yard has actually built a miniature version of Suzhou Garden, with rockery, pavilion, small bridge, and running water. There were only a few loyal servants of the Gu family in the courtyard, so Sarah had no scruples, took off the mask, took Charlie's arm, and said to him, "Charlie, do you remember this yard? When we were young, we often play hide and seek here." Charlie nodded and said, "I remember, but I always feel that it is not right in the memory." Sarah smiled and said, "This is a refurbishment. Compared with before, there are some changes." After that, she pointed to the frozen water and said, "There have always been many good koi carps here. Some have been raised in Gu's house for more than 30 years, and some are still what you have seen before. But now it's cold. The koi have been raised in the next wing, and they will be released when the spring begins. Would you like to go and see?" Charlie said in surprise, "How long does the koi live?" Sarah smiled and said, "The lifespan of a koi is about 60 to 70 years. If it is well raised and taken care of, it can live a few more years." With that said, Sarah shook her fingers seriously and said, "Look, there are several kinds of pets. If you raise them well, they may live longer than you. The other is the koi, and the other is the tortoise and parrots. Macaws and sunflower parrots can live to 60 or 70 years old." As soon as the voice fell, she took Charlie and said, "Come, I will take you to see them, and see if you can recognize them." Afterwards, Sarah took Charlie to a wing next to the courtyard. This wing room has a large area, and more than half of the area inside has been made into a constant temperature fish pond, in which a lot of huge koi are swimming around. Sarah pointed to one of the koi, which was nearly 1 meter long, and said excitedly, "Do you remember it? You used to name it Nobita. The name from Doraemon." Charlie smiled and nodded, "Remember, in the impression when I was a child, he seemed to be the largest." Sarah nodded and said, "It is a Taisho 3-color koi. My dad said that the price of buying it was worth the price of a 3-bedroom in East Cliff 3rd Ring Road." Charlie was slightly startled, although he was a little surprised, but he was not too shocked. "The koi thing is actually very expensive. Some time ago, the eldest lady of the Zhong family spent more than 10 million to procure a piece of koi." Charlie had also seen it. Therefore, the value of precious koi cannot be measured by the dimensions of ordinary ornamental fish. At this time, Sarah bent over and squatted on the edge of the fish pond, beckoned and called Nobita to the huge koi. Unexpectedly the koi swam over directly. Sarah reached out to touch it, and it did not hide at all. Sarah touched the koi while saying, "Nobita, look, Charlie came to see you. Do you remember him? He still remembers you." Although koi is not afraid of people, he may have some familiarity with Sarah, but after all, it is not human, and it is impossible to give Sarah any response. And Sarah was talking to it, and then raised her head and said to Charlie, "My dad said, Nobita is only 30 years old this year. If he takes good care of him, he can live for another 40 years. We played with him when we were young. Soon, when we have a baby, the baby can play with it too." Although Charlie didn't respond to Sarah's words, his childhood memories continued to emerge in his mind, and they were still imperceptibly, making him feel a little closer to Sarah. He even came up with an imaginary picture in his mind. If his parents were still alive and he has not lived in Oris Hill, should he be married to Sarah now? Perhaps the one who is guarding this pool of koi now is no longer the one who is walking with Sarah, and perhaps his parents, Sarah's parents. Even, it is really possible to follow 1 or 2.5 older children, chatting around him and Sarah, crying to their parents, and then asking them many details and memories about the koi. In fact, all this is not Charlie's unreasonable conjecture. He knew his father's character. Changjing, the second master of the Wade family, had a good word. If he was still alive, if he dared to say not to marry Sarah, he was afraid he would break his leg. Moreover, most of East Cliff's top rich second generations were married earlier, because the family had arranged the marriage partner early, and generally they would organize the wedding immediately when they reached the legal marriage age. In that case, he might have married Sarah in the door when he was 22 years old. Counting it down to now, he may have been married to Sarah for 4 years. If he was more efficient, it would be normal to have 2 children. Seeing that Charlie was a little lost, Sarah asked quietly beside him, "Charlie, what are you thinking?" Charlie smiled bitterly and said, "I think of my parents." Sarah sighed softly, "I also thought of Uncle Wade and Aunt Anne just now. I was just thinking that if there was nothing wrong with them that year, we might have already been married, and we might have had children. If they were here today, maybe 3 generations have gathered." Charlie was obviously startled. Unexpectedly, Sarah thought of it too. He couldn't help but sigh. Sarah accepted her fiancé since she was a child. For so many years, she has always regarded finding and marrying him as her life goal. If she really loses him in the future, how will he face Philip and Lennon? In the future, under the Juquin, how will he face the parents who have made a promise? Sarah on the side didn't know that Charlie was struggling in his mind, so she gently pulled his hand and said, "I'm sorry, Charlie, I shouldn't mention Uncle and Auntie, which made you sad." Charlie shook his head and smiled, and said, "It's okay. After so many years, it's not so sad anymore, it's more of a regret." Sarah clasped Charlie's 10 fingers along the way, pulled him up, and said with a smile, "Charlie, let's go out and play." Charlie nodded, shook off the melancholy thoughts in his mind, and strolled around the courtyard with Sarah, and then went to Wyatt together. Along the way, Sarah was unwilling to let go of his hand, and Charlie didn't force her to see that she was so interested. Although the weather is very cold now, for the authentic East Cliff people, this is the best time to come to Y for skating. Therefore, the whole Y is very lively, and the ice is full of men, women, and children playing around. Charlie and Sarah came to the ice hand in hand, rented a small ice car with 2 seats at the Old Master on the shore, and then he took Sarah to play on the ice. At this time, there was an extremely surprised look in the crowd, staring at Charlie forever. The owner of this look is Elsa. Elsa is also a native East Cliff girl. Because she will leave East Cliff to return to Oris Hill tomorrow, she also misses the skating experience in Y. She took a little cousin at home and ran to Y to play together. The 2 of them came earlier than Charlie and Sarah. They had been playing happily for more than half an hour, and when they were about to take a break, they saw Charlie walking hand in hand with Sarah. Sarah wears a thick mask, black-rimmed glasses, and a cute rabbit ear hat, so Elsa can't recognize who she is, but Charlie didn't do any treatment to cover his face, plus it was day and not night. The lover of the dream, so she naturally recognized Charlie at a glance. At this moment, she felt that the 3 views and cognition of the whole person had been subverted. How could Charlie go skating hand in hand with a girl? Moreover, the 2 are so close, it is very abnormal at first sight. If she remembers correctly, even if Charlie and Claire have never been so close. Could it be? Could it be that Charlie derailed long ago? She always showed her love to Charlie, Charlie always refused her without hesitation and righteously. She thought that he was loyal to Claire, but she didn't expect that he would be in East Cliff with a young beauty, skating hand in hand. Although she can't see Sarah's face, she can tell from Sarah's figure that this must be a superb beauty. With such a figure, she has already killed herself and even Claire so much that she has no chance. Elsa's mood suddenly sank to the bottom. She thought desperately in her heart, no wonder Charlie is always unwilling to accept my love, it turns out that he has a new love in East Cliff. Elsa's cousin suddenly stunned when she saw her sister, and asked curiously, "Sister, what's the matter with you?" Elsa came back to her senses and gave a wry smile, "Nothing, thinking about things." The cousin asked with a smile, "Are you reluctant to leave? Or you should stop working in the emigrant group and come back to East Cliff." Elsa was also a little confused in her heart. The family really didn't want her to go back. Dad, uncle, and grandfather hope that she can stay in East Cliff, and hope that she will have some development with Waliong, the eldest of the Gu family. But Elsa wanted to go back. The reason for wanting to go back was not for the job of the emigrant group, nor for the mysterious chairman of the emigrant group, but for Charlie. Charlie saved her more than once, and that time when she injured her leg, she had skin close to him. In fact, from the depths of her heart, she had been completely devoted to him long ago. She even felt that if she could not be with him in this life she would able to achieve peace, even if she was his underground lover, she was willing. After all, she loves him with all the wishful thinking and has no returns, and being an underground lover without a reputation, she can become his woman anyway. Even if she would be scolded by others, even if she would become a mouse on the street, even if her good girlfriend Claire turned against her, she would not hesitate. However, at this moment she suddenly realized that she didn't even have the qualifications to be Charlie's underground lover. Because, at this moment, the girl who was sitting on the ice cart and playing with Charlie happily should be Charlie's underground lover, right? Thinking of this, Elsa's eyes were red and moist. She suddenly envied the girl who she could not see her face. Although she was just an underground lover of Charlie, Charlie was so attentive and considerate to her, playing with her like a boyfriend. This is not what she has always been the most desired. At this time, Charlie didn't know that he was being closely followed by Elsa. He has been completely immersed in the recreational sport that he loved very much when he was a child. Everyone has a childlike heart, and Charlie is no exception. When he was happiest, a child with his feet on the ice skates slid faster and faster on the ice, and came straight to the ice carts of Charlie and Sarah. Unexpectedly, the child lost control of the direction. When he got closer and closer to Sarah, he didn't turn around, and slammed into her in a daze. As soon as he ran into her, the child screamed that he was hurt. Sarah was shocked when she saw it. Although the child seems to be in his early 10 years and weighs no more than 60 or 70 pounds, the impact of inertia cannot be underestimated after he gets up fast. What's more dangerous is that the children wear ice skates instead of roller skates. The thing is sharp. Once a person is pricked or scratched, it can easily cause serious injury. Seeing this, Charlie suddenly jumped off the ice cart in a hurry, then hugged Sarah in his arms and turned around half a circle, and lifted her away from the position where she was about to be hit. However, seeing that the child was about to hit the ice truck, Charlie couldn't bear the child's injury, so he kicked the ice truck along the way. The ice truck was between the sparkling flints that the child was about to hit, and from the ice jumped out in the other direction. The child didn't have much experience, and he didn't have any emergency responsibility. He was about to hit an ice truck, so he was so scared that he covered his eyes. At this moment, the ice car was kicked away by Charlie again, and as a result, the child continued to rush forward, and the speed was even faster than before. Elsa, who was not far away, was always on the three-point line formed by the child, Charlie, and herself. Charlie and Sarah just blocked the little girl, so she didn't see exactly what happened, nor did she saw a little girl out of control on the ice. She only saw that Charlie actually hugged the woman by her waist, and directly gave the woman an ambiguous princess hug, and her heart was sour and angry. She couldn't help but secretly think in her heart, Charlie is too much. It doesn't matter if you come to East Cliff to meet a lover, and you dare to show affection so grandiosely in public places like why, is this not too reckless? Just when she was angry in her heart, a black shadow suddenly rushed over in front of her, and her cousin shouted next to her, "Ah! Sister Elsa, be careful!" As soon as the voice fell, the dark shadow rushed to Elsa's eyes. At this time, Elsa turned her attention away from Charlie and Sarah to the shadow that rushed towards her. When she saw clearly that it turned out to be a girl who was covering her eyes and screaming in terror, she was also frightened, not knowing what to do. Anyone who has skated on ice or snow knows a basic safety rule, that is, you must stay away from people who are out of control. On ice and snow, if a person can't brake, his speed will easily reach a very dangerous state. If hit by a person at high speed, or hit by a car at high speed, there is no big difference. The ice skates and snowboards are very hard and sharp and can easily cause very serious injuries. Elsa didn't know what to do at this time. Deep down, she was even prepared to be hit hard by the child. At the moment when the kid's ice skate was almost reaching her, she closed her eyes in shock and screamed. However, after a while, the expected impact did not happen. At the spur of the moment, Charlie put down Sarah in his arms and quickly caught up with the little girl who was out of control. A second before she was about to collide with Elsa, he abruptly hugged her. Elsa opened her eyes and found that Charlie had stopped the out-of-control little girl at a critical moment, and she was really happy and angry. Happily, Charlie will always appear in front of her like Prince Charming at critical moments, and block all dangers for her. Angrily, she had confessed to him for so long, and devoted herself to him hoping to be his underground lover, but he has repeatedly rejected her righteously, and has refused until now. But she never expected that this guy would quietly find an underground lover in East Cliff. Charlie hadn't noticed Elsa at this time. His attention is focused on the child, because he knows very well that once a collision occurs, the child is more likely to be injured. For the same collision, the adult may be relieved, but the child may need to be hospitalized. Fortunately, the child was only frightened, but did not suffer any substantial harm. At this time, the little girl opened her eyes, seeing that Charlie had saved her and prevented her from hitting anyone. She took a breath and said gratefully, "Thank you, Uncle, thank you." Charlie smiled slightly, put her on the ice, and told her, "Little girl, you must remember to slow down when you skate." The little girl nodded hurriedly, "Thank you, Uncle, I see." After speaking, she carefully waved at Charlie. "Goodbye, uncle." Charlie watched her slowly slide away, and then he was relieved. He was about to go back to find Sarah when he suddenly saw a familiar face, staring at him with uprightness. He glanced and asked in surprise, "Elsa? Why are you here?" Elsa deliberately wrinkled her nose and snorted, and said, "Why is not yours, why can't I be here?" Charlie didn't know that Elsa was angry with him at this time. Seeing that she seemed to be a bit aggressive, he smiled and said, "I didn't mean that. I just think it's a coincidence that East Cliff is so big, how can we touch here on?" Elsa curled her lips, or the old saying goes, there is no impermeable wall in the world. I used to come to Y every winter for skating. I have been in Oris Hill this year. I had no chance. I thought I will leave tomorrow, so I came to play before I go. Here, I ran into you before I thought." With that said, Elsa glanced at Sarah who was walking over, and said to Charlie, "If I didn't come, I'd not know that you have a little lover in East Cliff." When Charlie heard this, he knew that she had misunderstood his relationship with Sarah, so he hurriedly said, "Elsa, you must have some misunderstanding about this matter. I don't have any lover. Don't talk nonsense." Elsa curled her lips, "Everyone is an adult, so don't try to cover it up here. Aren't you afraid that I will go back and tell Claire?" Charlie said seriously, "Elsa, you really misunderstood me about this." As he was talking, Sarah had already arrived. She saw Charlie talking to a beautiful woman, so she took Charlie's arm and asked intimately, "Charlie, is this lady your friend?" Charlie nodded, "It's my college classmate." When Sarah heard that it was Charlie's college classmate, she looked around and saw that there was no one else nearby except Elsa and her sister. Out of courtesy, she took off her mask and proactively reached out to Elsa with a smile. Said, "Hello sister, this is Sarah." Sarah took off her mask because she felt that the woman in front of her was Charlie's college classmate. Whether she positioned herself as Charlie's friend or Charlie's fiancé in the past 20 years, when she met Charlie, give a minimum of respect. Therefore, she decided to take off the mask. However, this move scared Elsa to the point of being struck by lightning, standing still and unable to move. She looked at Sarah's beautiful and familiar face and was speechless in surprise. The woman in front of her is really the hottest female star in China, Sarah. Sarah, the superstar who conquered the national audience and conquered Hollywood. Moreover, some people don't know the identity of Sarah's, and don't know that she is the daughter of the chairman of the Gu family, but Elsa is also the eldest lady of the East Cliff family after all, so she knows the identity of Sarah well. At this moment, she felt that the whole person's worldview had been subverted. "Charlie, how could you be with Sarah, a girl of heaven?" Moreover, the two of them also went skiing hand in hand with an ambiguous posture. More importantly, Charlie gave her a princess hug just now. God! The gap between the two is really too big. Sarah can be said to be the girl with the best overall strength in East Cliff. Although her family background is not the top in East Cliff, it is second only to the Wade family and the Sua family. However, Sarah's appearance, build, temperament, talent and popularity are a bit higher than those of the Wade family and Sua family girls. Therefore, in comprehensive consideration, no one from the Wade family and the Sua family can compare to Sarah. Or in other words, Sarah is not only the most outstanding one in Eastcliff, but also the most outstanding one in the whole country. Therefore, Elsa was extremely shocked and incredulous. Why? Why would Charlie be with a lady of heaven like Sarah? Elsa is still in shock. Her cousin has already covered her mouth in surprise and exclaimed, "Wow, it's really S.A." Sarah hurriedly put her finger to her mouth, made a silent gesture, and said with a smile, "Shhh, don't shout, there are too many people here." Elsa's sister nodded hurriedly, and asked in a low voice with excitement, "Miss Sarah, can I take a photo with you?" Sarah stuck out her tongue and smiled and said, "It's okay to take a group photo, but it's better not to post it on social networking sites, okay?" "Of course," Elsa's sister said excitedly, "don't worry, I will never leak." After speaking, she took her phone out of her pocket and leaned in to take a few photos with Sarah. Elsa came back to her senses at this time, and said to Sarah with an apologetic expression, "I'm sorry, Miss Sarah, I was so shocked just now, I didn't react at all." Sarah smiled sweetly, "It doesn't matter." "Sister, don't be so polite." Seeing Sarah's smile, Elsa felt that as a woman, she would be sweetened by her smile. In fact, like Claire, she is also a fan of Sarah. If it weren't for Charlie's presence, she would have rushed over to take a photo with Sarah. Therefore, Elsa couldn't help but tentatively asked, "Charlie, how did you meet Miss Sarah?" Charlie didn't think about how to answer Elsa's question. If he says that Sarah is a customer who asked him to see Feng Shui on her own, then it is obviously unreasonable to come to ice skating car hand in hand with the customer, but if he says that Sarah is the one he knew when he was a child, it would suddenly reveal his identity. After all, in Elsa's eyes, he is an orphan who has been living in the Oris Hill City orphanage. How could an orphan who had lived in Oris Hill since he was a child know the eldest lady of Eastcliff's Goo family? This is obviously unreasonable. So Charlie felt that it seemed difficult to explain this matter to Elsa without revealing his identity. But just when he hesitated, Sarah replied smoothly at this time, "Charlie and I have known each other since we were very young." After listening to Elsa, she was dumbfounded. She suddenly became suspicious, thinking, Charlie has lived in the Oris Hill Welfare Institute since he was a child. After leaving the orphanage at the age of 18, he worked on the construction site, and then met Claire's grandfather, who arranged for him. He went to Oris Hill University to study for a year, and then he married Claire. Calculated like this, Charlie's life path shouldn't have left Oris Hill. Then how could he know Miss Sarah's family? The identities of these two people can be said to be one place each day. Don't know how many levels are in between. Could it be that Charlie has any secrets she doesn't know? This matter seems to have only this kind of explanation. So Elsa asked subconsciously, "Miss Sarah, how did you and Charlie know each other since childhood? Didn't Charlie grow up in Oris Hill?" Sarah subconsciously wanted to tell the truth. Charlie reacted and hurriedly said to the side, "This matter is a long story." Elsa looked at Charlie, waiting for his next words. Charlie knew that Sarah's words just now must have subverted Elsa's consistent perception of him, so Elsa could not give up. She would definitely break the casserole and ask the end. If he doesn't give her an answer that satisfies her today, then she will definitely do everything possible to explore the truth of the matter in the future, and may even talk to Claire about it. Thinking of this, Charlie said, "Actually, when I was young, Miss Sarah's parents took her to the Oris Hill Welfare Institute. At that time, they donated a lot of money to the institute, and they also reached a group with me. One's charity assistance is a family helping an orphan. At that time, I met Miss Sarah, and because I was a little older than her, she always called me brother and we always get along as brothers and sisters." Sarah heard this and knew that Charlie definitely didn't want to reveal the identity of the Wade family young masters, so she nodded and said to Elsa, "Yes, so Charlie and I met a long time ago." Elsa suddenly realized. Rich people like to engage in charity, which is not unusual. The reason Charlie said, "as a whole," sounds like nothing is wrong, and it fits Charlie's entire life experience. In addition, Sarah next to her also affirmed Charlie's statement, so Elsa did not doubt it anymore. She just reproached and said, "Charlie, you know a star as big as Miss Sarah, why have I never heard you talk about it?" Charlie smiled and said, "You don't know me. I've never liked showing off. There's no need to always talk about my knowledge of Miss Sarah. Besides, I'm just a rag in everyone's eyes." I said that, and everyone would definitely not believe it. On the contrary, it will definitely cause everyone to laugh at it. If this is the case, why should I ask myself to be boring? Originally, Elsa only felt that Charlie's rhetoric could barely pass, but there were always some things that made her feel that something was wrong. However, Charlie's self-deprecation directly swept away the only little doubt in Elsa's heart. She thought that when Charlie was in school, he was looked down upon by all kinds of people, even his classmates from the same background could bully him wantonly. But he never cared about others, let alone argue or quarrel with them. It seems that everything has nothing to do with him. With Charlie's personality, it is indeed impossible to tell her about Sarah. Moreover, even if he said it, no one would believe it. Thinking of this, she admired Charlie somewhat. Knowing the Gu family and commensurate with Miss Sarah's siblings, but never told anyone about it, and would rather be looked down upon by others than thought of using this relationship. This is very rare. However, she still has a little faint worry. Because just now, she saw Charlie and Sarah behave intimately, so she always felt that there seemed to be something abnormal between the two. So she asked Charlie tentatively, "Charlie, did you know your relationship with Miss Sarah at first?" Charlie smiled and asked, "Do you know JX Vyson?" "I know." Elsa nodded and said, "Isn't this the super hot gastric medicine with amazing effect during this period?" "Oh, by the way, it seems that Miss Sarah is the endorsement of it." Charlie asked her again, "Then do you know that the manufacturer of JX Vyson, JX Pharmaceutical, is an Oris Hill company?" Elsa continued to nod her head, "Well, I know." Charlie smiled and said, "When Sarah went to Oris Hill to shoot an advertisement some time ago, she also ate dinner with Claire and me, but because Sarah is a public figure, I didn't tell you about it." "That's it." Elsa suddenly realized, and asked Charlie, "At that time Claire knew that you two had known each other a long time ago?" Charlie shook his head, "In fact, I didn't tell Claire the truth at the time, because Sarah was going to work at that time, and I didn't want others to know about my affairs with Sarah, lest I would drag Sarah's back legs. So I didn't tell Claire or anyone about this at that time." In fact, if I didn't happen to meet you today, I wouldn't tell you. Elsa nodded gently, and when she heard Charlie always laugh at the name Popper, she felt a little distressed in her heart, so she said, "Charlie, don't be so arrogant all the time. In fact, you are very powerful, I think few people can compare themselves to you." Elsa's remarks came from the heart. She really felt that Charlie was very unusual. If nothing else, the strength alone was by no means comparable to that of ordinary people. At the beginning, Oliver Vincent had no ability to counterattack before him. Judging by Charlie's terrifying combat effectiveness, those who insulted him in the past were actually not his opponents at all, but Charlie never cared about them. Sarah on the side hadn't spoken all the time. She knew that her unintentional remark just now almost caused trouble. Fortunately, Charlie's brain reacted quickly, otherwise it would be really hard to explain this matter. Seeing that Elsa believed his words, Charlie said, "Elsa, it's late, we'll leave first. See you at the airport tomorrow." Elsa nodded slightly, remembering something, and hurriedly said, "By the way, you just saved me again." Charlie smiled and said, "The old one is not you, it's the little girl. She really ran into you. You shouldn't have any big problems, but the little girl may be in a little danger." Elsa deliberately curled her lips and said in a very stubborn tone, "Thank you for that too." Charlie smiled helplessly, "Okay, we have to go, so I won't be polite with you. Remember this, don't tell Claire first." Elsa nodded, "Okay, I see, it must be tight-lipped." It's getting late and we both left. Elsa and her cousin parked their car in a nearby parking lot. Charlie and Sarah just parked their car in Goo's courtyard, so everyone was not in the same direction, so they said goodbye on the edge of the ice rink. After the separation, Charlie finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that today this incident was barely cleared. After Charlie and Sarah turned and walked out several tens of meters, Sarah asked him in a low voice, "Charlie, why do you keep concealing your identity? If you show your identity, how dare those people in Oris Hill bully you?" Charlie smiled slightly, "I left Wade's house with my parents and fell into Oris Hill. To put it bluntly, I'm just like an ordinary orphan. What could I do even if I showed my identity? Others may not believe it." Sarah asked again, "Then after uncle and aunt passed away, you could obviously contact the Wade family and let them pick you back." Charlie shook his head and said indifferently, "The situation in the Wade family is complicated, far beyond what I could control at the time. What's more, my parents just didn't want to bow their heads to the Wade family before leaving Oris Hill. Although I was young, my body was flowing. It's their blood, how can I take the initiative to bow their heads to the Wade family and return to the Wade family to enjoy the glory and wealth after their death?" Sarah's eyes soon turned red. She hugged Charlie's arm tightly and choked up and said, "I feel sorry for you for having suffered so much and suffered so many grievances for so many years. They looked down on you and can bully you." Charlie patted the back of her hand, and said with a smile, "Humans are like this. They have to withstand the ups and downs and be complimented by others for a lifetime. Maybe they don't know the dangers and sufferings of the world for a lifetime, so it is very likely that they will suffer in the future. Unfortunately, unlike me, I have seen the warmth and coldness of the world since I was 8 years old." These experiences will be a precious asset for my future life. Sarah nodded slightly, tears running down the corners of her eyes. She really felt sorry for Charlie's life over the past 10 years. Even if Charlie said so lightly, she felt like a block in her throat every time she thought of it. He was the young master of the Wade family, but he lived in Oris Hill and suffered from the bottom of the society. Sarah couldn't imagine how he survived so many years. Although she is younger than Charlie, she hopes to keep him in East Cliff forever when she thinks of these things. She doesn't do anything by herself. Every day, she will do everything possible to treat him well and make up for him for so many years. At this moment, Charlie suddenly sighed, "I will leave tomorrow. Let's see Stephen today." Sarah asked in surprise, "Charlie, are you going to see Uncle Stephen?" Charlie nodded and said, "My parents' things back then, I still need to ask him face to face." Sarah blurted out, "Then I will go with you." Charlie was not overly wary of Stephen. This is because he can analyze that Stephen has absolutely no malice towards him. Even for so many years, he was able to grow up in Oris Hill safely, thanks to Stephen's secret protection. Therefore, if Stephen had malicious thoughts about him, he would not wait until now. This is also one of the few people who can absolutely be trusted, so he is going to contact Stephen and ask him to meet to learn some details of the year. Stephen was in the Wade group at this time. In the high-level conference room of the Wade family group, all the children of the Wade family gathered here to participate in the family meeting. It was Zhongchuan Wade, the old master of the Wade family, who presided over the meeting. Nearly 20 descendants of the Wade family were all sitting in the meeting room. At this moment, the old master said with emotion on his face, "Old master walked in a hurry yesterday and went directly to the airport from Waderest Mountain. I didn't even see him for the last time. What a pity." Charlie's aunt, Cynthia, asked, "Dad, did you let us come to the meeting for the old master's return to the United States?" Zhongchuan waved his hand and said, "The old master had told me a long time ago that the reason why he stayed in East Cliff and the country after the completion of the Waderest Mountain was to wait for a chance that belongs to him. He is gone, presumably he has gotten the opportunity he has been waiting for years." Everyone nodded, and a cousin of Charlie's generation asked, "Grandpa, is there anything important that you led us over today?" When the old master called the entire Wade family's direct descendants for a meeting last time, and decided to move the ancestral grave, the Wade family's family business was too big after all. The children were in charge of various ministries and scattered across the country. If it was not an extremely important matter, there was no need to. Everyone got together with great difficulty. Zhongchuan sighed and said, "At the beginning, the old master told me that after the dilemma of Dragon's Sleepy Shoal of the Wade family broken, Wades would have the opportunity to soar into the sky and rise to the next level, but I still couldn't understand it. Dragon Wade, where is the opportunity to soar into the sky?" Everyone looked at each other for a while. The current strength of the Wade family ranks second among the big families in the country, second only to the Sua family. If one were to rise to the next level, wouldn't it mean to surpass the Sua family and become the first family in the country? As a result, everyone was a little excited. Charlie's third uncle, Chang-Jiun Wade, said, "Dad, did the old master give some general clues? For example, where will this opportunity appear? Who is it? Or through what can we find relevant clues? Zhongchuan shook his head and said, the old master only said that the Wade family will usher in a God-given opportunity, but as to what the opportunity is and where to look for it, he didn't confide half a word, just said that it is a secret opportunity that should not be revealed. Cynthia smacked his lips and said, then this range is too broad. We can't catch clues if we want to. Zhongchuan said, if you can't catch it, you have to find a way to take the initiative and search for it. After speaking, Zhongchuan said again, I have been thinking about a question for the past 2 days, that is, how can we surpass the Sui family? Surpass the Sui family? All the descendants of the Wade family, when you look at me and when I look at you, they all think this incident is almost a fantasy. Compared with the Sui family, the Wade family is similar, and the comprehensive strength of the Sui family is about 20% higher than that of the Wade family. However, because the Sui family's and Wade family's property base is too large, the difference in money between the 20% gap is also astonishing. If the Wade family wants to surpass the Sui family, it will be possible to increase their assets by at least a few $100 billion. The size of the Sui family is stronger than that of the Wade family, and the development speed is naturally faster than that of the Wade family, so the gap between the Wade family and the Sui family is actually slowly widening. Now wanting to go up against the trend and catch up with the Sui family all the way is not only difficult, but more like a fantasy. Zhongchuan could not help but sighed when everyone was silent. 20 years ago, when Changjing was still alive, under his leadership, the Wade family almost surpassed the Sui family. At that time, Changjing formulated a strategy to dominate the country. East Cliff's big family believed that the Wade family would inevitably surpass the Sui family and become the top of the country. Having said that, Zhongchuan was silent for a moment, his eyes full of compassion and said, but, after Changjing left, you people are really not as good as one. When Cynthia heard this, she was very dissatisfied and said, Dad, it would be boring if you say that. We always say that we are not as good as Changjing and that is not as good as Changjing, but you drove away the Changjing family. Driving him away, maybe the Wade family had now achieved the goal of dominating the country. You. Zhongchuan pointed at Cynthia angrily, trying to yell at her, but then he put it back. He sighed and said to everyone, what happened back then is over. Let's focus on the present. Cynthia said, do you always have any good ways to shorten the distance between us and the Sui family? Zhongchuan hesitated for a moment, and said, the Sui family has always been a prosperous male lead. Father Su has 5 sons and 13 grandchildren, but he seems to have only 2 granddaughters. One of them is 22 years old this year and has reached the age of marriage, and the other is a minor. These 2 granddaughters are like pearls in the hands of the Sui family. If the Wade family's grandchildren can marry the Sui family's granddaughter, it will definitely help the Wade family. Charlie's aunt, Cynthia, said, Dad, Sue's granddaughter is very much loved in Sue's family. If you want to marry her, at least it must be our eldest grandson. Wade's grandson is the son of Cynthia. At this time, Cynthia sighed and said, he has already signed a marriage contract with the Norwegian royal princess last year. The wedding will be held this summer. Almost all East Cliff knows about this. There is no room for mediation. Yet, Charlie's cousin said, the Xiu of the Sui family, I have been in contact before. This woman has a cold personality and rarely participates in social activities. Many domestic and foreign celebrity gatherings have changed. She has never accepted the invitation. To pursue her is as difficult as going to heaven. What's more, I have a marriage contract. If I go to pursue her, the Sue family can see my motives at a glance. One of Charlie's cousins, Ha-Wade, the eldest son of Chang Jiun, the eldest third of the Wade family, couldn't hide his excitement and said, "Grandpa, why don't I try?" Andrew, Charlie's first uncle, glanced at this plain-looking nephew, shook his head and said, "Ha-Wade, the strength of the Sue family is above us. Even if you are the eldest son of brother, you may not be able to enter the eyes of the Sue family. Not to mention you?" Chang Jiun said a little displeased, "Brother, what you said is boring. Who stipulated that Sue's parents and granddaughters must marry someone else's eldest son? Maybe our Ha-Wade has this charm?" Andrew chuckled, "The third, if you are not convinced, you can let Ha-Wade give it a try. I'm just afraid that Ha-Wade won't even have a chance to meet Xiu. In that case, it would be a laugh." Elder Wade couldn't help sighing, splashing cold water and said, "Want to marry the Sue family? Ha-Wade is really too far behind." As he said, he suddenly remembered something, his eyes flashed, he looked at Stephen, who had not spoken, and said, "Stephen, do you think that if the son of Changjing is allowed to marry the Sue family, can he agree?" As soon as Mr. Wade said this, the whole audience let out a surprise. "The son of Changjing, isn't that Charlie?" In fact, as early as when Elder Wade asked Stephen to buy the Emgrand Group, in Oris Hill to give it to Charlie, and invite him to return to the family, everyone knew the news that Charlie was still alive. Except for the old master, everyone else was very wary of him, even extremely repulsive in their hearts, for fear that he would return to East Cliff and compete with them for the Wade family's property and power. Fortunately, Charlie rejected Stephen's request and did not return to Wade's house, so everyone breathed a sigh of relief and slowly relaxed their guard. However, even if Charlie didn't come back, everyone was extremely dissatisfied with the matter of the grandfather throwing hundreds of billions and giving him the Emgrand Group. The Wade family's assets exceed trillions, but after all, the population is large. Charlie's grandfather has 4 sons and 2 daughters. Except for the second child, Changjing, who died young that year, the other 3 sons gave birth to 7 grandchildren and 6 granddaughters. Although the 2 daughters were married, they both held important positions in the Wade family's financial empire. Therefore, even if they were evenly distributed, it would not be possible to reach the level of 100 billion per person under the circumstances of many children. Therefore, Charlie got the Emgrand Group alone, which really made many Wade family members very jealous. At that time, there were also many people who jointly opposed and strongly protested the eccentric approach of the father. But the old master resisted the crowd and insisted on doing so on the grounds that the Wade family owed too much to Changjing's family. Although everyone was dissatisfied with 10,000 in their hearts, fortunately, Charlie did not plan to return to East Cliff to compete with them for more property, so everyone reluctantly accepted all this. In the eyes of everyone, it is actually quite good to let Charlie be a feudal king outside, at least it will not affect their fight for the position of Wade family patriarch. However, the old master actually wants Charlie to come back, and he also wants him to marry the Sue family. Isn't that for them to lead the wolf into the house? Therefore, Andrew blurted out, "Dad. The son of Changjing has been outside for so many years. He has not received high-end education, has not experienced family training and experience, and is completely a wild man. Let him marry the Sui family. Doesn't it make people laugh out loud? And, I remember, he has already made a family in Oris Hill." "Yeah, Dad." The old third Changjun also hurriedly said, "Which one of our Wade family's grandchildren is not the top domestic private school and has been studying from kindergarten to high school? Which one is not studying at a top overseas university? Which one is not from childhood not receive the top-notch education combining Chinese and Western? Not only learning knowledge, learning business, learning management, but also learning multi-language, learning aristocratic horsemanship, learning golf. The son of the second brother, grew up in an orphanage, not even a university he's been to. How could Miss Sue's eldest in the Sui family look at such goods?" Others also agreed with him. Stephen said blankly at this time, "Mr. Charlie has been to university, but he has not been in college for 4 years. Moreover, I have some contact with him. In my opinion, Mr. Charlie has the demeanor and courage of the second master. It is definitely a dragon and a phoenix among people." Someone shouted sternly, "The surname is Stephen, there is no place for you to speak. Don't look at who is around you, we are all named Wade. You are a domestic slave with a foreign surname, what are you talking about here?" Stephen said, neither humble nor overbearing, "Although I am not named Wade, my life was given by second master, so Stephen had already sworn that this life will belong to the Wade family, so for every word I say, I have a clear conscience." Wade said coldly, "You think we don't know you? You are not loyal to the Wade family at all, you are loyal to my second uncle, so you did everything possible to hide Charlie, and you did everything possible to fool Grandpa to buy assets for him. An imperial group, do you still want to fool Grandpa to get him back to East Cliff? I think your selfishness is actually trying to help Charlie win the position of the Wade family patriarch, right?" Everyone's expressions changed as soon as this was said. Even old Master Wade couldn't help being stunned. Stephen said in a cold voice at this time, "I never thought of letting Mr. Charlie come back. I just tell you objectively that today's Mr. Charlie is not inferior to Changjing Wade, who was so powerful in East Cliff back then. As for the marriage, it is the master proposed it, not me. Besides, you don't have to be frightened here. Mr. Charlie doesn't want to come back at all. With my understanding of him, even if I kneel down and beg him, he will not come back, let alone abandon his wife and go with Sui family marriage." When everyone heard this, they were relieved. "Won't come back? It would be better not to come back." Elder Wade's eyes narrowed slightly. After pondering for a while, he said seriously, "Actually, I think if Charlie comes back, I can't say that he can really marry Xiu successfully." "How is it possible?" Andrew blurted out, "The Sui family's eyes are higher than the top, and our outstanding Wade parents and grandchildren may not be able to do it. He is a vulgar person who has been outside for many years, why should Sui family be admired?" Elder Wade looked at Andrew coldly and grinned. Andrew was shaken by the old master's glance, and he felt as if he could see through his mind at once. Elder Wade knew in his heart that the reason why Andrew was here to belittle Charlie was because he was afraid that Charlie would really come back, and he was even more afraid that Charlie would really agree to marry the Sua family. Because of fear, so belittle. It seems to be justified, but in fact it is just to cover up his inner panic. Others also agreed at this time. Everyone's reason was simple. It was just that Charlie grew up in a humble environment and couldn't be worthy of Sua family girl. Chang Jiun said with a sneer on his face, "Dad, although Charlie is the son of my second brother, he has been the sling in the mouth of a young man for so many years. How can a sling be compared with a lady of heaven like Xiu?" Seeing everyone objected, he thought that Elder Wade snorted and said, "You? Do you know that back then, Xiu's mother, the eldest daughter-in-law of the Sua family, wanted to find life and death for Changjing? Back then, she chased Changjing for many years. As long as Changjing nodded, she would be the second daughter-in-law of the Wade family. Today, she also worships in front of Changjing's grave every year. Do you understand this kind of love for the house and the Wus?" In a word, the audience was in an uproar. Andrew only remembered those past events at this time. Changjing back then, in the entire East Cliff, that is really the dominant existence. Don't know how many wealthy daughters, they dreamed of marrying him. This includes Xiu's mother and Su's eldest daughter-in-law. Back then, countless men were deathly jealous of Changjing, including his eldest brother. If the old master said that Xiu's mother loved Changjing, then Charlie and Xiu's matter is really possible. Just when everyone in the Wade family had their own ghosts, thinking about what reasons they should use to convince the old master to give up this idea. The old master patted the table and said excitedly, "I think if Charlie nodded in this matter, the success rate is very high." Andrew hurriedly said, "Dad, Charlie is already married. Do you think it is possible for the Sua family to marry the eldest granddaughter who is like a jewel in the palm to a married man? Even if Charlie is divorced, it is a second-time marriage." Elder Wade said indifferently, "As long as the charm is big enough, what about the third marriage, even if it is not divorced? Do you know how many wealthy daughters East Cliff had back then, would rather give Changjing a little? They had no complaints. This is the charm of Changjing." Andrew said grimly, "Dad, times are different. Now young people admire, how can they be willing to wrong themselves?" Elder Wade said coldly, "Will he or not? It's not you or me. It's the facts. How can I know if I don't try?" After that, he immediately said to Stephen, "Stephen, go to Oris Hill as soon as possible, and when you see Charlie, tell him about this matter." Stephen said earnestly, "Master, I don't think Mr. Charlie will agree." "What?" Wade Old Master frowned, pointed at the other Wade family heirs, and asked, "They don't want Charlie to come back, don't you want it as well?" Stephen hastily explained, "Master, you have misunderstood. I am looking forward to Mr. Charlie's return to the Wade family day and night. However, based on my understanding of Mr. Charlie, it is indeed impossible for him to agree to marry the Sua family, and he is very attentive to his current wife. When talking about the marriage, don't forget that he and Miss Sarah's always have a marriage contract. That is the order of his parents and the words of the matchmaker. Mr. Charlie counts. Miss Sarah, who considers the Gu family, will not consider Xiu from the Sua family either." Everyone thought of a fact that they had ignored for many years. As early as when Charlie was young, he had already betrothed to Miss Sarah, who is now the big star. Grandpa Wade suddenly cast a golden light in his eyes, and said excitedly, "Oh! I am dull." It turns out that the opportunity to soar into the sky that the old master said is on Charlie. Others looked at old Master Wade, wondering why he suddenly said this. Elder Wade sighed at this time. Although the strength of the Gu family is much weaker than that of the Sui family, but the Gu family is not less. Philip owns 25.5% of the Gu group's shares. This does not count as his other assets. Adding up is afraid that it will reach the trillion level. Even if there is no one, it will be infinitely close. The most perfect thing is that he has only one daughter, and everything about him in the future will belong to his daughter. In other words, it will also be his son-in-law. Everyone was jealous to death. Real or fake? So Charlie has been outside for so many years, and he still carries the marriage contract with Miss Sarah of Gu family? This is too enviable, right? At this moment, the old master stood up excitedly and said to Stephen, "Stephen, give you a task. I don't care what you use. Within half a year, Charlie must divorce the woman in Oris Hill, and then return to the family." Stephen nodded, "Master, I must go all out." The other Wade family members were all annoyed. According to the current trend, it depends on whether the old master must get Charlie back. Moreover, once Charlie comes back, he is very likely to become the son-in-law of the Gu family, and also likely to become the son-in-law of the Sui family. At that time, he had become a real person in the Wade family who could make ends meet. This is an unacceptable situation for other cousins. All of a sudden, everyone began to think desperately about the countermeasures. Elder Wade's mood suddenly cleared up, and he could already determine that the opportunity for the Wade family to take off that the old master Lai Qinghua said was Charlie. This immediately solved the doubts that had troubled him for 4 years and made him feel good. So he laughed, stood up, and said loudly, "Okay, that will be all for here today, let's end the meeting." Everyone's expressions were a little strange, but no one dared to say anything against it, but everyone had their own ghosts in their hearts. The vast majority of them were unwilling to see Charlie return to the Wade family in high profile. After the meeting ended, Stephen returned to his office and just sat down in his seat. He received a call from Charlie. With joy in his heart, he hurriedly connected to the phone and asked respectfully, "Master, how do you think of calling me?" Charlie asked, "Steward Stephen, is it convenient for you to speak now?" "Convenient? Yes." Stephen hurriedly said, "I'm in my own office. It's very safe and confidential. You can say anything." Charlie gave a hum, and said lightly, "I am in East Cliff and want to see you. Do you have time?" Stephen asked in surprise, "Master, have you come to East Cliff? When did it happen?" Charlie said, "I have been here for 2 days, came over to do some things, plan to go back tomorrow. I want to see you before I leave." Stephen immediately said, "It's okay, young master, please move to the hot cup tea house in Huiguang Guild Hall." Charlie said, "Okay, then I will pass by now." Stephen hurriedly said, "I'll set off immediately." Huiguang Guild Hall was a Qing dynasty building. It was used to entertain people from Huiguang area who went to East Cliff to rush for the exam. It is a bit similar to the Qing dynasty Huiguang office in East Cliff. Later, it gradually developed into Old East Cliff people listening to music and having tea. Great place for an outing. Stephen invested in a tea house in Huiguang Guild Hall. This tea house is antique and charming. Stephen often comes here to rest or entertain friends on weekdays. With Stephen's current status as the chief steward of the Wade family, he is considered to be the #1 person in East Cliff. In addition to the top families, the patriarchs of other families have to be respectful in front of him, so his tea house business is very well. Many people with good looks like to come to join in. When Charlie arrived at Huiguang Guild Hall, Stephen had already arrived one step ahead of him. He personally greeted him at the door, seeing Charlie coming with a woman wearing a mask, stunned. Stephen has been cultivating in East Cliff for many years and has extraordinary insight into many things. He can almost see at a glance that the woman wearing a mask who came with Charlie is Sarah. At this moment, Stephen was extremely happy and said excitedly, "Master and Miss Sarah, how did you two meet together?" Sarah smiled and said, "Uncle Stephen, I'm all dressed up like this, and I can't hide from you." Stephen smiled and said, "Miss Sarah has an extraordinary temperament. How can a mask cover it?" After that, Stephen hurriedly said again, "Young Master Miss Sarah, it is not convenient to speak here, please follow me to the backyard." Hot Cup Tea House is divided into front yard, middle yard, and backyard. They are all typical antique wooden buildings. There is also a stage inside. People often talk about crosstalk or sing Peking opera here. The front yard and the middle yard are both open to the outside world. Members of the tea house can consume here, but the backyard is not open to the outside world. This is Stephen's private domain, which is extremely confidential. Stephen respectfully invited Charlie and Sarah into the private living room in the backyard. After entering, Stephen immediately distracted all the service staff, personally invited Charlie and Sarah to sit down on the sofa, and at the same time personally used his set of precious Jianzhu tea set to make a pot of tea for the two. After passing the fragrant tea cup to the two of them, Stephen couldn't hide his excitement and said, "Master, I really didn't expect you to come to East Cliff, and you are still with Miss Sarah." Stephen had actually longed for Charlie to be willing to come back, and he had also longed for Charlie to come together with Sarah. He has been in East Cliff for many years, and he knows the situation of Wade family and other big families very well. Based on his mastery of the entire East Cliff family situation, he felt that the best choice for Charlie was to divorce his current wife, and then leave the small city of Oris Hill, come to East Cliff, and get his Wade's the identity of the young master, and then marry Sarah openly. In Stephen's opinion, no one in this world is more suitable for Charlie than Sarah. The two of them are simply a match made in heaven. This is not only because Charlie and Sarah originally had a marriage contract, but also because Philip is a righteous person, and their family of three values loves and righteousness. More importantly, the Gu family has extraordinary strength and only has one only daughter. If Charlie marries Sarah, it is equivalent to putting half of the Gu family group behind him. In that way, Charlie is not only the second young master of the Wade family, but also the super rich, no one can match in East Cliff. Therefore, now that he saw Charlie and Sarah together, he was very excited. Charlie said lightly at this time, "I came to East Cliff this time mainly to take a look at Uncle. Didn't he have a bad health some time ago, so I came to see him." Stephen was shocked and blurted out, Master Chairman Gu suddenly recovered from a serious illness, and the whole person looks a lot younger on TV. Should be your help behind? Stephen paid no less attention to Charlie. Although he didn't know many things, he still heard about Charlie being regarded as a master in Oris Hill. He knew that the second young master had some abilities that ordinary people did not have. Facing Stephen's problem, Charlie smiled slightly, nodded gently, and said, "I also got a good medicine by chance, so I rushed over to give it to Uncle. Fortunately, the good medicine worked well." Stephen trembled and said with emotion, "Master, the effect of your good medicine is more than good. It can be described as superb. Having lived for so many years, I have never heard of any medicine that can cure it. Good for advanced pancreatic cancer. From this we can see that your good medicine is definitely a miracle medicine." Charlie nodded non-concomitantly and looked at Stephen seriously. "Steward Stephen, I have prepared a copy of this good medicine for you. If you need it in the future, I will definitely deliver it to you." Rejuvenation pills, Charlie has them of course. If it is really necessary, he can take it out and give it to Stephen at any time. But the reason why he said he would wait until Stephen needed it was that he wanted to use rejuvenation pill to increase Stephen's reliability. It was not that he had doubts about Stephen, but that he felt that it was always right to be cautious under any circumstances. Stephen hangs with the rejuvenation pill, and Stephen's loyalty to him will inevitably increase. As soon as Stephen heard this, his whole expression was stunned, and he immediately thanked him. "Master, with your words, I will die without regret when I go up to the Sword Mountain and down to the Sea of Fire." Stephen is not only a loyal person, but also a smart person. Although he didn't know exactly what rejuvenation pill was, he could also get a glimpse of it through Philip's performance. First of all, the good medicine Charlie said must be a miracle medicine that can cure all diseases. Even advanced pancreatic cancer, a severe disease with a fatality rate of almost 100%, can cure it. Then there may be no disease without a cure in this world. Secondly, Philip's whole body state on TV was better than when he was healthy, which proves that this good medicine can not only cure diseases, but also prolong life. With these two effects, it can almost be called the world's treasure. But now, Charlie actually promised to prepare a copy for him, which not only made him excited, but also moved him extremely. Charlie nodded lightly and asked Stephen, "Steward Stephen, I came to see you this time to know the details of my parents being forced to leave and the murder after that. Do you have any more clues? For example, behind the scenes. Who is it, etc." Stephen hesitated for a moment, and said, "Master, at the outset, your father clearly offended the Rothschild family, which has dominated the West for many years, but actually offended the entire East Cliff family." Charlie frowned and asked him, "Why would my father offend the entire East Cliff family?" Stephen sighed and said, "Back then, your father led the Wade family to start transnational finance and trade under the tide of opening up the market economy. At that time, many large families in China knew nothing about overseas financial markets. It is very traditional physical trade, such as exporting some domestic products to overseas, and then importing some products from overseas to return to China. This kind of transnational trade is the most basic. Our ancestors have been doing this since the Wang and Song dynasties, even in the Song dynasty. Our country had become the largest foreign trade country in the world. Quanzhou Port, 1 or 2,000 years ago, could be said to be the busiest trading port in the world. Speaking of this, Stephen sighed and said, however, until your father was young, the foreign trade of our domestic entrepreneurs was almost the same as that of the Wang and Song dynasties, with little technical content, while Europeans and Americans had already played multinational finance. It's supernatural, stocks, futures, oil, gold, private equity funds, hedge funds, venture capital. These are the housekeeping skills of Europe and the United States. At the time, Asian countries were still relying on the hard-produced goods of workers to go overseas to exchange for money. When a little bit of little money was accumulated, their hedge funds went directly to Asia to wreak havoc with a lot of hot money. The financial turmoil can also legally steal the fruits of labor in Asian countries for years or even decades, causing a country's financial collapse, stock market collapse, and property market collapse. Back then, the Rothschild family aimed at the blood-sucking goal of the big family in China. When everyone could only be slaughtered by others, it was your father who stood up and organized the entire East Cliff family to work together against Rothschild. This family finally caused the Rothschild family to retreat in embarrassment and dare not come to China for 10 years. When Charlie heard this, he couldn't help frowning. According to what you said, the East Cliff families should have thanked my father. How did my father offend them? Hearing Charlie's question, Stephen smiled bitterly, and said in a sad tone, Master, most people in this world are like this. They don't know how to be grateful, and they will depend on others and enjoy them only when they need others. Others give them help and support, but as soon as they don't need others, they will immediately turn their faces, and even complain that others have robbed them of the limelight. Stephen said with emotion, You don't know. At that time, your father led them with Ross. When the Child family fought fiercely, they were very flattering, and even took the initiative to form an East Cliff Business Alliance and elected your father as the first chairman of the alliance. But when your father defeated the Rothschild family, they again immediately disbanded the Business Alliance, and even vilified your father's failure to operate, missed the opportunity to defeat the Rothschild family, and even maliciously slandered behind the scenes, saying that your father and the Rothschild family had joined forces to cheat the major families of East Cliff off their interest. Charlie heard this, could not help but clenched fist, red with rage, thundered a low voice. These people, it is too much, Stephen sighed, Hey master, employing forward. No need to look like people from behind, in every big family in East Cliff, it is everywhere. Back then, your father, from a hero who resisted the Rothschild family, suddenly became the object of envy and slander of everyone in East Cliff. Your father was too good. Stephen said here, he paused slightly, and continued, The wood is beautiful in the forest, and the wind will destroy it. This is an eternal principle. After all, he was too good, so, the entire East Cliff families turned their guns at him. The Rothschilds saw him become a target of public criticism, and immediately made a comeback, and they were also very insidious. They publicly declared that they were the Rothschilds, the Wade family, and they have personal grievances, naturally let all other aristocratic families watch the fire from the other side. Stephen's tone became more and more angry. The old master saw that the Wade family was going to be the target of the Rothschild family alone, and there were even a lot of East Cliff people behind. Other families waited for an opportunity to stab the knife, so they had to expel your father from the Wade family, and announced to the public that your father had nothing to do with the Wade family, so your father would take you and your mother to leave Eastcliff. Go to Orris Hill. Charlie's expression was very gloomy. He gritted his teeth and said, "This incident is that the entire Eastcliff family betrayed the Wade family, and then the Wade family chose to betray my father, and finally pushed my father out as the scapegoat. Our family of 3 bore the anger of the Rothschild family alone." Stephen nodded lightly, and said with red eyes, "It was indeed like this back then." Charlie's eyes were full of solemnity, and he said coldly, "It's all a group of fraudulents who crossed the river and demolished bridges and fell into trouble. I swear by my name, one of these fraudulents counts as one, and I will make them pay for it." Stephen hurriedly said, "Master, don't be impulsive. This happened back then. Except for the Gu family, all other families had participated in Eastcliff. From the Sua family, which has been thriving in these years, to the other small families whose assets barely exceed 10 billion, all betrayed your father without exception. You must not become their public enemy." Charlie said with a resolute expression, "I am not a timid person. These people, even the Wade family, are all accomplices who killed my parents. I will not easily let them go." After speaking, he looked at Stephen and said seriously, "Steward Stephen, you don't need to worry too much. I'm not a fool. When I'm underfed and lacking in strength, I will not go against Major Eastcliff's big families. I'll try my best, save energy, and give them a surprise." Stephen sighed lightly, nodded and said, "Master, it's not just that you want to avenge the second master and the second wife. I am looking forward to this day for a long time. If you have any needs, I am willing to go through fire and water for this." Charlie nodded and said, "Steward Stephen, if there is anything that needs your help, I will definitely tell you. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.